Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another edition of Hilaal Live. Thanks for joining us on channel 347, also on our live stream www.hilaal.tv. As we do on Hilaal Live, we enjoy inviting various people that make a difference, that are doing weird and wonderful things, also expressing themselves in various ways. And we like to invite authors onto the show as well. And today, from Cape Town, I'd like to welcome Boeta Moosa Kapery, who is an author. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, and also assalamu alaikum for the viewers.
Shukran so much for joining us. Uncle Moosa, you've written quite a few books, but the one that you've published very carefully as well. But before we get into the book as well, tell us a bit more about how you got into writing. What inspired you? Where did this all start?
Yeah, I've always been involved in education, and we worked on a concept. We worked on a concept of people's education, which moves away from the syllabus of the apartheid regime.
Right.
The education system that was designed in 1953, Judge Insland was the chair of that commission on education, and his final summary was that why teach people of color, don't give people of color too much education, who is going to do the hard work? So prepare thyself for the cheap labor market. And Verwoerd at that time in the Senate also made a statement, why teach blacks maths when they will never have the opportunity to use it? So the education system was designed, and I saw it as a psychological attack on tender minds.
Right.
Simply because the education system devised at the time was, as I have said, to prepare people for the cheap labor market.
Right.
And we could not throw that education system overboard. During the school boycotts, we said to the students, you need to go back to school. We don't want a decade of uneducated children. And fortunately, the students agreed to go back to school to be educated on a concept of separateness. Not an education system that encourage critical thinking.
Right.
It was a competitive system.
Okay. So coming back to your book itself, what made you write this particular book?
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm telling you, right? It's a long historical
For sure.
thing,
Okay.
So because the curriculum does not reflect on the history of South Africa, the true history of South Africa, the struggle of the Khoi. In fact, I have two poems that I wrote regarding the Khoi. I felt that we had to document
I agree.
how I saw the situation.
I got you.
Now, if you ask me the question, how did you get into writing?
Right.
I've always believed that, we can talk to each other.
Of course.
If I can talk to you, I can also stand on the stage and speak to 100 people or 1,000 people.
Right.
All you really need is that confidence to face them, because if you can converse with one person, you can with 100 people.
Sure.
And the same applies to writing.
To the writing. I like that concept. I like how that bigger picture that you have as well.
Yes.
Now, the process of an author, each author has a very different way of putting things together. And obviously your way was from the history, from your experiences that you put, pen to paper. Was your process any different? I mean, did you use anything in particular to put this book together?
No, it's actually very simple. I have a very close friend who is an advocate,
okay,
who is trying to write an autobiography for several years now.
Right.
And I don't think he's on page 2 yet.
Bit of a writer's block there?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't even call it a writer's block. It's just not to have the confidence of doing it. Okay. As I said, if you can write a letter, I believe you can write a book.
Yes.
What you are writing is your life's experience.
Also true. Also true.
And it is really so simple. Once you get started, you don't stop.
Of course.
You really don't stop. Yeah.
So the book itself comes from our history and your experiences, our history in South Africa as well. In the book itself, is there any particular moment or passage that you would like to share with us?
Yes. I think that all the legislated criminality, as I refer to, that is the legislation during apartheid years, the Group Areas Act, I think, affected people most.
Of course.
And people were moved far away from the places of work.
Absolutely.
In other countries, it's the rich that live far from the places of work. In this country, it's in reverse.
Right.
And it affects the quality of life of people because of the long hours of travel and
the money spent.
The money spent on travel.
Yes.
And what does it do? It breeds gangsterism. It breeds gangsterism because the people are hardly at home. When they leave in the morning, the children at times are sleeping. When they come back in the evening, it's almost time for the children to sleep. So the children don't really have a home. So the second home is the gangsters. Okay. You see. So it really affected people. So on District 6, for instance, I lived in District 6, and it was really a vibrant place, They did not only steal our buildings, our businesses, but they also stole our history.
Right.
District 6 and Sophia Town was rich in history. That is where our artists lived. Many people of talent lived. And for District 6, I wrote, "Freedom, freedom," I cried. "Freedom in my lifetime before I die. To live in areas where birds do fly, fly birds, fly sparrows, enjoy the freedom I'm denied. District 6, stolen from under our feet." So that is an extract of the poem, District 6.
Beautiful.
But then also, it was not only confined to Cape Town.
Yes.
There was suffering right through the country. Sophia Town really touched me. And it touched me because many of our great artists came from there.
Of course.
With Sophia Town, District 6, at least the people had the opportunity to find alternative accommodation, or they were moved
displaced
to places like Hanover Park. I call it bearing the streets of tears, of sorrow and tears. But at Sophia Town, 100 police arrived, armed with guns, and people were forced from their homes. The farmers were waiting. They were complicit. The farmers were waiting because many of these people that were being moved had livestock, and some of them were farmers. They sold the livestock to those white farmers at a fraction of the value of the stock. And they were herded into trucks as cattle would be.
Yeah, that's unfortunate history that we come from.
Yes.
Do you speak about some of those in your book?
Yes, and now the Sun, just an extract on Sophia Town, which is in here. The Sun, from his vantage point, witnessed the carnage below, took shelter behind the clouds, refusing to emerge. How can I shine on this dreadful day? You know, I get so emotional when I write. Some of this poetry is written with tears in my eyes.
Of course.
And my daughter Taslima tells me, Dad, your writings are so sad. I said, no, Taslima, that is our history. We lived a sad history, but you will notice that at the end of each poem, there is a message of hope. Because we need to instill that message into our young people so they know why am I making this effort to go to school or go to college? If there's nothing waiting for me, beneficial for me, to go back to once I'm qualified.
Absolutely. Boeta Moosa, it's very inspirational having you in studio, listening to your wonderful works as well, because, you know, paving your generation, paving that way for our generation to ensure that we can pursue various opportunities as well. We need to take a very quick ad break. When we come back, we're going to listen to some of your works from your book, inshallah. In studio, I have Boeta Moosa Kapery, who is a published author. He's written a couple of other books as well, and inshallah, we're going to hear about that. Do join us on the WhatsApp line. I'll have that open after the ad break. And if you're a budding author, you're welcome to give us your questions, comments to Boeta Moosa in studio. From the Cape Town studios, I'm Lukman Shadrack. Thanks for tuning in to Hilaal Live. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for joining us on channel 347, also on our live stream at www.hilaal.tv. Now, today we have a wonderful author in studio who's chatting about his latest work, which has a rich history of our experiences in South Africa, but also the author's experiences from his travels as well. In studio, Uncle Moosa Kapery, thanks so much once again for joining us. Really appreciate it. It's so nice to hear some of the stories that you have in your book, and coming from our rich history that we have in South Africa, turmoiled, unsettling in many areas as well, but needed to be documented. I would imagine. One of the stories in your book talks about, and maybe so relevant to what's going on in the world right now, our brothers and sisters in Palestine and the conflict that's happening as well. You had a wonderful experience that you, Uncle Moosa, has recorded in your book. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah. I don't think I'll term it as a wonderful experience.
Right.
But it was a rich experience.
Okay.
When we went for Hajj in 2007, on the way back, we visited Palestine.
Okay.
And there we had our first-hand experience of dealing with those Zionists at the border.
Right.
They were allowing everybody in within a few minutes, but the South Africans, they were holding back.
Right.
We sent word around. The reason is because we support Palestine. Because of South Africa's support for Palestine, we were being victimized.
My word.
And we stood there for hours. We sent word around, and we started a boycott right there and then.
Okay.
We said we're going to boycott their shop.
Okay.
The people were hungry, the people were thirsty. They had no respect for the elderly. I was not so old at that time. Right. I think I was much younger.
But you're still young.
But
you're not old now anyway.
Yeah. I always say age is only a number.
There we go.
But reality catches up with you, when you wake up in the morning with an ache and a pain,
I feel you.
Anyhow, coming back to Palestine, nobody went to the shop. They starved, but they didn't go to the shop.
Right.
So that is how committed we are in support of the Palestinians. And if I may just read a poem that I wrote. Actually, in this book is 12 poems with regards to Palestine. 2 weeks ago, I spoke at a mass meeting in Sea Point.
Right.
Yeah. The plight of the Palestinian youth. The conflict in the world weighs heavily on youth. Palestinian youth robbed of their birthright. We share their pain. The world powers speak with rosy speeches, but decisive action is needed to rock the foundation of Zionist Israel. The bravery and resilience of the Palestinian people must be applauded. They have the right to defend themselves, their property and their dignity. We need to send a strong message. Palestine is not alone. We share their pain. Better days beckon on the horizon, inshallah.
Yeah. The book itself, called Velocity of the Tide, how long did it take you to put together?
If I could just extend the discussion a little bit, to encourage people to start writing.
Please.
I would say to those listening, pick up your pen and start writing.
Inshallah.
Do it now. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
Of course.
If you can write a letter, you can write a book.
Inshallah.
It's as simple as that.
Right.
Because what you are writing, fiction is a different thing. We're not talking about fiction now. We're talking about the historical facts, our own experiences, and so on. So I want to say, if you can write a letter, you can write about your experiences, because that is your experiences.
Correct. And your passion comes through in your writing. Your passion comes through in your writing.
And you'll find that when you write about 5 pages, you start getting that feeling of, I really want to finish this book.
Absolutely. If we look at the book cover, I see it's very descriptive. You've got wonderful illustrations, colors. Do you want to talk us through how you came up with the cover?
Yeah. You see, Verocity is, it's actually about craving.
Okay, Verocity.
But it's more related to craving for food.
Gotcha. Okay, but you've used that analogy.
Because it's a poetry, because I wrote it in poetic terms, I thought of Verocity as the craving of power
I see.
of the regime.
Gotcha.
The craving of power. So what's happened? The picture in itself, if you can project the picture, then if you look at the rainbow, whenever there's a storm, in the worst of storms, you will find that the colors of the rainbow are in harmony with one another.
Right.
There's never distortion.
Right.
The attack on the liberatory forces, on the liberatory struggle and people involved there was so profound that the rainbow has distortion. It even affected the rainbow. The distortion there. That is the level of ferocity of the attack by the regime on the liberatory struggle. The tide, no force can stop the tide. We all know that. We go to the beach, we see the tide coming in. They haven't invented anything to stop the tide. No need to. So the tide on that stormy day was supposed to engulf people of color.
Right.
But you see, the white people also got caught up in between. And what stopped the tide is the scriptures.
Gotcha.
Meaning?
Very profound.
Meaning that our fight was a just fight. It was a fight for justice.
Gotcha.
It was a fight for our dignity.
Besides this wonderful book that you've written, poetic book, have you written any other works that you would like to mention?
Yeah, this book was supposed to be part of a bigger book of 300 pages.
Okay.
But then I decided to move the poetry away from the main book.
Okay.
And then I came up with this book, 160 odd pages, not very thick. But as poetry books go, they're usually 60 pages and 80 pages, I talk a lot, so I also write a lot. So the other part of the book deals more in detail with legislated criminality.
Okay.
That is the apartheid laws that affected our everyday life.
Right.
Laws that somehow took the dignity of many people. took their homes, took their livelihood.
And the ripple effect that it's created ever since as well.
Yes. And yeah, so it is much more in detail and explicit.
I'll get you. The book itself, where can our viewers find the book? Do they approach yourself? Is it on local bookstores? Where can we find the book?
Yeah, you see, usually books, I'm not supposed to sell because it's very unprofessional.
I got you. I got you.
So Academia Library, upstairs,
right upstairs, yes.
They are distributing the book kindly. I really appreciate it. And Masjid Al-Quds, the Spectacle Select, Mr. Faisal Royker, the branch at Vangate and in Mitchell's Plain. And then we have a shop in Gatesville. It hasn't reached the bookshops yet. You know.
Inshallah it will. Inshallah. I think after people listening to you, watching this interview, inshallah people will request more copies of this book, because your story needs to be told, your experiences, your poems, and to encourage other young budding authors as well. A couple of minutes left. In closing, last message from you to everyone listening to this wonderful interview.
I want to say I'm as close to you as the phone. You pick up that phone if you need some encouragement, if you need advice. I'm always available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I'm repeating myself, pick up that pen. Start writing now, not tomorrow. Start right now. You'll be surprised at the result.
Of course.
Everyone has the talent. Everyone that can write a letter has the talent to write a book.
Uncle Moosa, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio. Jazakallah for affording us your time, coming through and chatting to us about your work. And inshallah, may all your future projects grow from strength to strength, inshallah.
Shukran. It's been a pleasure being here. And also my appreciation to your audience.
Thank you so much. Jazakallah so much. And there we go. That's Uncle Moosa Kapery telling us about his work, pen to paper. That's the advice. After the break, we chat to a community organization who would like to tell us a bit more about some of the great work that they do and some of their future plans that they also have as well. You are still watching Hilaal Live.